going to break it down. The basic Awesome. Hello, recording. This is a program logic model, which is a way of laying out your plan for a project in a structured way at a high level and then going down to details. The basic idea is it works from left to right. Unlike when I'm doing a presentation, normally I'm facing the same way as you all are, so it's pretty exciting. Left is on the same left for everybody here. Resources on the left and impact on the right. So impact, that's what you want to do. That's a change you want to make in the world, and resources are what you have to do it, and everything in the middle is how those things connect together. The basic idea is when we do our planning, we start over on the right side with the impact we want to have and then work back to what resources we'll need to do that. Then when we actually do the work, you obviously you do the work with the effort, your resources go in, and then you hopefully have a machine that makes the impact come out at the end. So to break this down, can I change slides? Yes, okay. So, right, this is what I already said. The planning flows that direction. And so the things on the right side, see, now I'm confused. The things on the left side are on the direct control of, or the right side here, this, are on the direct control, or out of our direct control. They're things that we hope to make happen, but we can't actually do the mission. The mission is a thing that that should be accomplished when we're done with everything. The vision should come true when we're done with everything that we've worked on. And then the outcomes are a little more broken down. The missions and visions tend to be pretty high level statements. The outcomes are more specific things that can then go there. So, yep, the impact is the desired long-term effect. And the vision is what will happen when your mission comes true. For something like an objective, actually, for a lot of times when you're trying to plan something for a team, coming up with a mission is easy, and coming up with a vision kind of turns out to be, the vision is make the mission come true. In this case, for something like this, it's actually a little bit different, and it tends to be the vision that's the most important part. Like, what is the world going to be like in 18 months when this work we've done to make this objective happen? So that'll become more clear when I actually show you my straw draft versions of these things that I threw together really quickly. Outcomes then are specific measurable change. They're things that we know can that you can actually do. So the vision might again be high level. We want to make the world a better place, and the outcomes are specific how we're going to make the world a better place lists. Now, outputs, going back to the left one further, outputs are things that we actually produce. So if our way to make the world better is that we are going to send happiness packets, people will be happier because they'll get happiness packets. The outputs are actual happiness packets created and sent, right? And the activities are the things you do to make those outputs. And one of the things that I think often happens is people do the planning of these are the outputs we want to make, and then they don't actually list what activities need to happen to make those outputs. So actually going through that is good. And one of the things that is also often the case is people have a lot of activities that they think they ought to do as part of a project, but they don't link to an output. So going through and saying, okay, we're doing these activities, but they're not really related to an output that we've decided to do. So then you should look and choose one of, is this activity something that we should be doing? Maybe it isn't. Maybe it's outside of our scope. Or there's actually something we're doing here that produces an output that we think is important that we haven't linked into our model. So one of those things should change if there's activities that aren't listed. And then, wait, somehow I'm missing my resources slide. Well, there are resources as well. Here is a much more complicated template that I made. Marie promised to make me a prettier version of this. I drew this in Inkscape with my awesome skills. But it basically explains the whole thing in one overwhelming slide here, and kind of gives details of it. I'm not going to go through all of these right here, but this is available in Pagure if you want to look at it. There's a link somewhere. Yeah, and that's the end of my little presentation there. But questions was actually a good slide. Do people have questions about all of that? Does it make sense? Does it seem like a good model?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, so
Yeah, it makes sense.
All right, now I am going to log back off again because it turns out I can't do high DPI and share my screen at the same time, and everything is unbearably tiny. So I will join you again in 1 more minute. Please open up the HackMD document if you haven't already, and I'll be right back.
Cool. So while Matthew's out, I just rearranged a little bit so we could keep meeting notes by meeting in the scratch pad. Thought that might make sense. I also did forward the new a new logic model. It's not a template logic model. And I think Akashdeep, you said there's 2 lines. All you have to do is delete one of the lines. It's usable. I mean, I could make that change right now. Actually, let me do that.
The thing is, it's being replicated over and over again. So I think it's something intended by the 2 vertical lines.
No, we talked about it in the last meeting. Actually, Matthew and I, we all talked about reducing that and just making it 1 thick line because people are afraid that we were missing people were perceiving it as if we had got rid of a column instead of.
Yeah, it looked like it
Yeah.
came down. Right.
Hello again. So I'm not going to share the screen. Does everybody have the HackMD site up? So the first thing to work on here is the mission and vision, like where we're going to go. And I hope people have brought ideas about this to here. I just wrote these in literally 2 minutes to give us something to work with. Basically, the idea here is the mission isn't going to be the mission of the group. The group can have its own mission and probably should. The mission is what we're trying to do as an objective, which is a 12 to 18 month project to launch this. And then the vision is what we'll have when we're done doing this work. And some of this, there will obviously be, if the team is functioning, there will obviously be some work which is actually like doing cool stuff with websites, actually doing websites work, which isn't necessarily part of the objective itself. Like that's just the effort of the team. So that doesn't necessarily need to go in here, but we might put some of the things on here like, demonstrate that a website, we can modernize Moat as an example. So something like that might fit into the things we're doing. What do people think about the drafts here? You should all have edit access. I made it wide open. So please start writing your ideas here, like things that should be different or better. This shouldn't come from me, really.
I guess, have we talked a little bit about the long-term vision yet of what we might want to shoot for in 12, 18 months?
I talked a little bit about what I want, and I can put it down here, but let's hear what other people have to say.
Yeah, I guess maybe just to get started or to start the conversation, I guess for me, I was thinking about this earlier, and for me, one thing I would like to see is actually seeing at least one application that we have in the ambiguous community-owned category. I'd like to see that moved into a community-hosted, community-managed application, or way that we could actually build a community around both the development pieces and the operations. So I'd like to see us actually take one of these apps, like say Moat, for example, since that's what this all started with, modernize Moat and make it so that we're running that in an AWS cloud instance, and we can really easily do new deployments to that, new updates to that site.
Okay, I'm going to throw that down as an outcome in the step below, and maybe we can tie that into the into the mission plan as well. But that's kind of like a thing we want to have, right? We want to have.
Yeah.
I also might have a thing we want to have,
Okay.
which is a regular like plan, and it's like written in to update the websites as the new releases come out. That's part of what the old websites team did, right? And
Yeah.
we found that to be missing.
The Respins website, especially, it's been a while since that was last updated.
The Spins
Right.
website. Yeah. So
Yeah.
um, so that could also be a want to have update one of the existing websites, or oh, I see that my bullet lists are not bullet lists properly.
I think something that would be good for the team is once we identify all the different, community applications and websites, seeing if we can reduce the number of them, and like if some of them don't make sense, or I guess my idea is I think that the team will be more successful if they're focused on a couple things versus everything under the sun. And we know how Fedora applications were made. They're ideas from people just like us. So sometimes they might not make sense anymore. So I think taking a look at what makes sense to pursue for the future of our websites is important part of this process.
Right. So I think the outcome there is the team knows what they're focused on, basically. And I want to see if I can. It's actually maybe a written plan isn't quite right. So this. And then that ties to here a documented plan for updating websites on new Linux.
Another part of the revamp, I think, is choosing a new or, reinvigorating that mindshare rep position. Really love to have someone from this, reinvigorated team actively coming to the mindshare meetings so we can get input from what's going on over here. So definitely want to focus on that, because I think we've had one person in that slot and, things have changed over time for him and he doesn't really make it anymore, but we don't have someone new in the spot. So putting in a process or whatever it needs to be for this team to make sure we have an active member on Mindshare.
Right.
I think it would be good to improve the navigation across as much of our web presence as possible. I find that it's really easy to kind of get lost searching through things, and it could do with a bit more of a consistent top-level navigation.
Plus one to that should be implemented. Also, one of the things that Jan told about, that it takes some time before the issues are prioritized upon, and it's general. It's not something which is very specific to the websites and apps team, but would definitely want to consider this to prioritize the issues, make sure that the newcomers are not left in a hanging state. It gets over with. So something that you would want to do.
Right. Let's see. Issues and tasks. are that's almost part of the focus thing. I think I might put it as a sub thing of that, or maybe just after it. Let's see. What I want to say here is it's easy to see what tasks need to be done and what work is available, basically. Is that what you were saying there? Is there something else that I'm missing?
No, Matthew. The thing that I wanted to say is it's more related to practices, right? So the ways the issues are assigned, the pull requests are reviewed, they are merged. It should be done in a prompt basis. If people can take them up, they should take them up. A practice kind of thing, not really something specific to websites and apps.
Okay. So
it is more like
are we talking about onboarding and mentorship right now?
I think it's more like quick response when some does some changes like pull requests or something.
Okay, yeah.
I've made some changes and they've been waiting for half a year and nobody has taken up on those. So.
And I think that's true for so we've had I know like IoT people have been frustrated before, like they were like, I need this ARM device to be listed on the website, and they would file an issue, and then 6 months later they're complaining to me instead of the website's team because they don't even know who to complain to on the website's team about it, right? So that's requests and PRs are
the onboarding thing as well. I think Murray was suggesting it, right? Yeah. So even that thing, even though it's not quite related to what I was saying, but even that's a good point. We should definitely include that newcomers should be comfortable with how we onboard them and how things are done.
You could do things like just making sure your repo is triaged and tagged correctly. That's a great place for bringing on new folks.
Right.
At this point, I also want to add that we also would love to focus on the mentoring part. It is also about getting new people onboarded. If there are folks who don't have experience, then it would be great to have some kind of mentorship as well.
All right. Yeah.
The website's apprenticeship has a nice ring to it.
Right. Okay. One of the things I didn't write down here was the idea of making sure all the websites are easier to navigate and get between. And that's not because I don't think it's a good idea. It's because I think that's a thing the team will do when they're functioning, not a thing to do to get the team up to being function. Does that make sense? So I think that should be in the scope.
I agree. Yeah.
In scope of the mission of the team, just not part of this planning process.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Right.
Yeah, I think it will happen organically anyway.
So 7 outcomes is kind of a lot here, but that some of them aren't gigantic, so maybe that's okay. Are these outcomes that we want? So we jump down a little bit, and then I kind of want to go back up to the vision and mission from these things and make sure we all have them covered. Are there things that are missing here yet?
Matthew, are you writing in the HackMD pad?
I am, yeah. Are you not seeing it, or?
I don't know if your notes are syncing to the pad.
No, there's a second HackMD, Justin. There's a specific for the logic model.
Oh, you've been missing
I just
everything.
posted it. Yeah, I just posted the link again in the chat.
Got it. Thanks.
Yes, this will make what I'm talking about much more clear to you here, Justin.
Excellent.
So on these, I think one of these things, so at least one app will be modernized, one web app will be modernized, I think is a good outcome. Or that might actually be let's see. I feel like that's actually an output. I'm going to move that down to here. It's a thing to do, and that the outcome of that is so by modernizing one app, the team has experience and ability with updating legacy Fedora web apps is sort of the outcome, because if and basically can prove it can be done, right? So that's the outcome, is the team gets the experience and the ability to do it, and the output, the thing you do, you have a modernized web app. Does that make sense?
Should the outcome consider the outcomes which are subjected to the team or subjected to the community?
So, yeah, the outcome. Can you rephrase that?
Yeah, so I was telling that the things that lead to the outcome, should that make changes, it does things to the community, or should it be limited to the effects in the team itself?
No, they could be effects in the community as well, for sure.
Right. Yeah, so that makes sense, that we get a modernized app as an outcome of it. That makes sense.
Right. Okay. So in my vision here, has an active, engaged team, takes care of our main websites and all of our various community apps, has experience with updating the legacy apps, kind of ties to that, and websites are available, updated, ties to that as well. I'm going to move those things up to the top because they tie to the first sentence that I put there.
I'm not sure where this one lands, but I think that an important part of the websites is having a uniform look across all of them. I mean, we could have one that's more modernized, but I do think that having generally like a theme that runs across all of them is pretty important. So if we wanted an outcome, it would be that our Fedora websites show like a brand effectively, basically.
Okay.
Also, I made an edit to the logic model design, and I put it at the bottom of this HackMD as an example. And I just wanted to, because you're asking me to address the two lines, so I just wanted to see what you thought of that, Matthew.
Wait, where's that's the other HackMD?
No, it's this one, the one you're in.
Yes, big thick line, better.
Okay, well, I will send that to the team then. All right, so I'm okay with adding this. I don't want to grow this too big by putting too many things into this part of it, and some of those things might just be goals of the team as a team, like the best practices and brand guidelines thing. It's the same kind of thing about having consistent navigation across them. That makes sense.
So I'm gonna. I can cross it out on the markdown and it doesn't sync on the other side. So on the output side, everything in the case this wasn't clear, everything on the number should actually correspond to the number that it goes to, and I got it out of sync, but so again, back to the vision. New folks who show up with an interest in code contributions find this an easy place to jump in. I think that's the next 4 things here. The team knows what they're focused on. It's easy to find tasks for every skill level. Requests and PRs are handled promptly, and mentorship is available, or all go right to that thing. So that's good. Members of the team are empowered to do their work they're interested in. Actually, some of that is mentorship is available because that's for team members, right? I actually may expand that both for new interested new members and for all members needing to get things done in Fedora infrastructure, because that's I can't spell infrastructure right now. It's not just new people coming in, but there may be like suddenly you need to do something that interacts with Bodhi for some reason, or interacts with Fedora messaging, and you've never done that before. You should be able to find somebody on the infrastructure team who can help you figure out how to do that, even if you're not new to the website stuff. So I had that there as well. And I think participating in the Mindshare committee actually is also ties right to that thing that I put in the vision. It helps that's part of empowering the team to do that. And maybe connected to the this is bad wording.
So I added one line, since what I looked at, we have websites and wiki pages. You can find several different versions, and you don't really know what you should do. Is this you should follow, or is something else you should follow? So the uniform outlook should actually have the older versions marked that they are outdated and probably direct to the new ones.
Is that from a user point of view, or from a team point of view, like the team doesn't know what to work on point of view?
Well, I think user mostly, but team as well should know what is the proper place to start with. If I have questions, I go and search for web, and I can find 5 different places.
Okay, yeah. I think that makes sense. Let's come back to that, back down to the linking the outputs to the outcomes there. So are there other things that are missing from this vision statement, and are there things here that don't make sense? Like I said, I wrote it in a minute, so it doesn't necessarily supposed to be perfect, but if everybody thinks it's good, we can also just use it.
I have a idea for adding something. I don't know if it's too ambitious, but also looking at the idea of adding capacity to build new applications that solve problems in the Fedora community. Farther down the line.
Exactly, Justin.
Right. Okay. Yes, I like that. Something like, I don't think we want to necessarily, like the team, we don't want to bite off too much, because doing all the things we've talked about already is already there, but something like the team is set up to build new, set up so that in the future they can build new exciting things. I don't know, I'll just write that down.
First draft.
Hey, I
It's
think
ver-
Jan's
it's a,
point can.
right.
Sorry, Matthew, you can go ahead.
It's a lot of words. That's all my only thing.
Right. Yeah, I was telling that. Oh, sorry.
No, go.
Yeah, no. So the suggestion that Jan provided, that there's a lot of confusion as to which page to go to when there are questions regarding wiki. So that kind of falls in line with what Murray said regarding the consistency of how the websites look and how they perform. So maybe look, perform, and where they point to. These all three things can have consistency. So maybe these 2 points can come together.
Yeah, I think it also goes to like choosing the scope of what the team says is things that they can work on right now and things that they can't. I think that's all kind of related as well.
Right.
Back up to the very top, I put the mission here about to reboot the team. Does this sound good? And one of the things I put in here that's not actually reflected somewhere else is that I would like Red Hat, OSPO and CPE people who are assigned by their job to work on some of this stuff to work in this team as part of the community, and I kind of hinted that there. That's part of it, but maybe I feel like this isn't quite sufficient here. Maybe it should also have the actually, maybe the maybe this part can go into the mission as well. Actually, try that. And maybe I'll get rid of the Red Hat team part right here. I'm going to remove straw draft here because nobody's coming up with entirely different ideas. So I think these are our working points at this point. Should I put that thing about Red Hat in here anywhere? Is that a Marie, you're making a funny face at me. Or are you just concentrating?
I'm concentrating, but I was like trying to remember what Red Hat thing it was.
Part of this is the thing is it's been kind of come to a thing where like a lot of the CPE stuff happens as this is Red Hat doing it and telling the community rather than working as community. And this isn't anybody's fault. It's just how it kind of worked as they went through some internal reorg and it kind of came out this way. And I'd like this to be an example of how Red Hatters employed to work on things can work in a community team rather than separately. But that might be just my agenda, and maybe it doesn't belong in this because
I think you and I have to kind of be the ambassadors to CPE, convince somebody over there to get involved here.
All right, so that's our job, not the mission. I'm okay with that. All right, so if people are generally okay with what we've got here for the mission and vision, let's go. So all the outputs should have the numbers. If this were the side-to-side chart or drawing it on the whiteboard, I would actually line these up one-to-one. HackMD doesn't quite do that. And actually, I thought about doing this in Taiga, but Taiga also doesn't have that vertical alignment. Whiteboards are just the best for this, and it really only works best if we're all in the same room at a whiteboard. If this weren't COVID, we'd fly us all to somewhere and we'd have this discussion in person. But that being it being how things are, we'll not be able to do that.
I did HackMD does do a little table. So once we figured out things for sure, we could try to do it that way.
I find markdown tables really hard, but yeah.
Very good.
Too many dashes to draw. There's
Um,
too many dashes to draw.
So I think at least one has the experience and ability with updating legacy Fedora web apps and pages, actually. So at least one app is modernized, and is it Moat? Maybe it's Moat. As well as one website spins. There. So the websites are reliably updated when new Fedora releases come out. The thing that links to that is actually having a plan and understood team roles and responsibilities. Like Fedora Linux 34 beta is coming out next week. Whose job is it to update the websites to have the banner that says the beta is available? Right now, it is we hope that Rick is available to do it. Is our current thing, but that's not even written down anywhere. It's just kind of a known thing. So getting that documented is important. And I think that documented plan and responsibilities covers that. So the team knows what they're focused on. Number 3 here, a selected list of supported. This is making a list of properties, basically. So maybe I'm going to make a suggestion. There's a thing called service level expectations. It's like an SLA, except for there's no agreement because this is a volunteer community, so nobody has to sign that they're committed to agree something, but there's kind of an expectation that, the main Fedora project.org website will get some level of attention, whereas, what can I do for Fedora.org? Maybe further down the list, but maybe like if somebody notices something, it'll get updated in a week, something like that. Does that make sense? And does that meet what you were saying, Marie, about listing the apps?
Yes.
And I think older versions of websites marked as outdated and redirected can be part of that. Or maybe also this, actually, I'm going to move that down to an activity because this user, it is apparent to users what level each site end users, so end users can see, end users can easily discover what support level is expected. And so, yeah, that kind of goes to here. Right. So basically, if I look at a website and I should know, is this a top tier Fedora website that's current, or is this an old website that needs work, or something like that? As a user, it might not be a banner on the top, but if I go to ask for a change to be made or something, I should be able to see, that this is related to this. Does that make sense? And is categorizing things like that and making those markers seem like a useful activity for the team in the next year? I'm not I'm uncomfortable with all the silence I'm getting here because I'm not sure if these are good ideas or if I'm just assigning work that nobody actually is interested in doing. I'm happy to take this off the list if people don't want this.
Well, it is something that is actually needed.
Yeah, but there's
It
a lot of
can
things
be
that
very
are needed.
it can be very particular to say about it, but it's needed. But it's very specific.
I guess just balancing, sorry, the workload between like marking all of those sites overtly versus just like, I don't know, optimizing and getting the newer system or the newer sites to be just like where everyone ends up going to, like balancing out how much time it would take to label those things versus just getting everything moved into a newer system. That would be something to take into consideration.
Yeah, it's a lot of work for sure. Could we make general purposes of our applications of other communities to reuse and repurpose? Yes, probably. I think I think that might be a good team goal overall, but I don't know if that should be an immediate mission focus. Although if that's what you're interested in, that's also cool. But I think, like, again, there's a lot of stuff to do. Just getting it going is a good start, and sharing can come out after that. I know it's a little bit, some ways it's easier if you start with sharing, but we're kind of not in that place anyways.
Makes sense.
Okay, so it's easy to find tasks for every skill level. Yeah, so I don't know, do we want to leave end users can easily discover what support level is expected, or do we want to be like end users this the sites that end users end up on are the ones that are currently maintained. Maybe that's just tautological, but I think that's maybe it's actually good, and that the design flows to that, right? I don't know. There's all right. I'm having trouble with the wording here. Feel free to type something else if somebody else has ideas for that.
Sorry,
Matthew, we can jot down the ideas first. We can, reword them, rephrase them later on after the meeting gets over.
Okay. So I'm going to actually add the team knows what they're focused on, and the focus meets user needs at the top. So right, that in some ways the websites in use are the most updated sounds obvious, but it is so often not true that I think it's worth having it there. Updated or curated or most what's another word for updated? Maintained. Okay, it's easy to find tasks for every skill level. I think the outputs there is a continuously curated list of and I feel like that's also PRs. so that's someone that in some ways it's an activity to do that, but the output to I'm having trouble putting requests and PRs are handled promptly into the form of an output, I guess, because that's an ongoing thing rather than a continuous thing. But maybe the output there is really a process, right? And this one is 7. What is the output needed to ensure that we have mentorship? A mentorship program. So there we have an output that links to everything in the outcomes. Do all of those make sense? Are there anything missing from there?
I'm not sure how to word this with it, but I think that having between the curated lists of tasks, the triage process, and the apprenticeship, organizing things based on like the type of development, like if it's a front end development thing, if it's like copywriting and editing, or is it more of a design focus, or is it back end, so that we organize our stuff like that, because that'll give people the ability to kind of see where they fit and where their interests are a little bit more clearly.
Yeah, I think that's good. And that I put above for every skill level. Let me put every skill level and interest there, and those that matches there. So having a list that's curated and triaged and organized in that way, I think that's good. Okay, so then it kind of goes down to the activities, what you need to actually do to make a web app modernized. Now, of course, the activities can actually explode out into a whole bunch of actual issues and tickets. So this should be, for the point of view of the logic model, this is sort of a high-level pointer. And if you're using this actively, you could actually have this be links to, here is the whatever task board for this set of activities. Obviously, it's going to be more than that, but in this case, the activities are just things like develop new version of Moat, update Spin's website to new framework, link to tasks. Document. Feel free to jump in and start writing on these things. So I think they're fairly obvious if you in the way that I'm doing them here.
I have a quick question, actually. I'm
Yeah.
curious about thoughts on this. Where was it that you wrote that? Oh, yes, for meeting user needs, an activity for that. I'm just curious on what our methodology for being able to make sure that we are meeting user needs and that we're doing work that's current with that. So having some sort of a reflexive process should be an activity that we kind of build into our workflow.
That's super good. Yeah. Yeah. This. So one of the things I think is a good best practice is to people keep track of what's the time in the project from a PR to a commit, and setting up those kind of metrics, and that kind of helps the reflexive process. If you look and say, okay, it's taking us an average of a week to get to things, then you can decide, is that good? Do we want to try and make sure that it's 3 days? Do we want to, or if it's taking 6 months to get to some kind of things, look at the process.
I added sentences for the last two, but you can change them easily.
Yes, I think those are good. That
You can just get rid of that one. I had it there because I was thinking about it and wanted to write it down.
I'm putting this as a comment there. Yeah, so each of these things should obviously get broken into more details here.
Ashlyn caught that, I think. I was dancing with my cat.
All right. So, do these seem like good activities? Are these all things you want to do in the next year? Are there things the team wants to do and be doing that aren't being written down here? And again, like things that are just like regular websites work don't need to be included, but things for getting the team in order. Like, are there parts of it that are missing? Are there things that should be being done that aren't?
I think we need to include a little bit more incentive in here. Like maybe we could put in something for like badges, and we could make sure that there's an updated team logo, and maybe we could even make like a little stickers or something.
Right.
Some kind of thing to help people, feel appreciated, and for newcomers too.
Right. So active, engaged team. Yeah. And now my numbers are off. Okay, I like that it Markdown automatically renumbers things, but I kind of wish that HackMD would also just change the numbers. Team is happy, excited, and rewarded, right?
Recognized. Around the same.
Yep. Badges. Team swag. What else?
I'm sure you can use a stat.
I'm not sure if I can think of anything else. Currently, I think that's it. That's the only thing I saw missing, the incentive.
Let's see. Yeah, and these are things that we can do as a project for this. We hope that people appreciate the work of the team, but we can't necessarily. This has to be things under our control. So, what other things can the team do to help celebrate itself? I guess. This is now becoming a long list of things, but
That's a great question. I mean, we have karma. That's the number one thing I think about when I think about peer-to-peer recognition. But I don't think we have it. Like, and I also think of Fedora Appreciation Week, the stories. There's a couple different things, but I'm trying to think of like a way that our teams currently do that. Like, is there anything that's team specific as far as peer-to-peer recognition that we can think of? It only works within the badges team, I think. Like,
what?
So we can give badges to each other for working on badges.
Everybody who's quiet, what else would make you feel happy about doing this?
Well, I feel happy when I see something happening, so it's enough for me, but for some others it might be that they want a cup of coffee or something else.
Yeah, I definitely think for a lot of folks, they'll take some time to unpack all of the stuff that we've covered today because it was a lot. But speaking for me, some of the key things that I want to see represented in our work, like taking and really prioritizing mentorship. Item number 7, like documenting the mentorship role, and really trying to document. Really, the documentation piece I think is important for mentorship. So that's really what I wanted to see represented here, and that's also where I see myself probably working more hands-on with. But the rest of the things make sense to me too, and I feel like, at least for now, what I would like to see represented in this activity list is there, but maybe taking a week to think on it will help too.
Okay.
When I look at this, I think it's looking really solid as a base. I'm interested to see how the activities and the tasks really break down as things go. And I see my position as maybe in this whole thing as helping to do that and to facilitate the various things with the other teams to make sure I can, poke people and say, hey, can we get this done? So I want to be, support, facilitate, make sure we keep on track. That's where I see myself here.
Yeah, from my opinion too, I think we covered pretty much all the foundation for the team. Like, we have the activities, we have the outcomes and happiness packets and all that. So yeah, I think this looks really good to begin with. And I'm sure there would be slight modifications based on how things flow. But to begin with, this is a really good, solid foundation we have here.
All right, and resources are basically I don't want to leave them blank, but it's kind of sometimes tedious to go through. But it's a good exercise to be like, who do we need? What do we need to actually make these things happen?
Maybe making a plug here for Ben's program management team. There definitely would be opportunities.
I was writing the word Ben there as well.
Action forgotten, but I was thinking, wait, let me go back to it. I was thinking we're going to need some folks with the documentation skills to update docs and all of that. I know we have people on this team, that's kind of what it is, but if we're focused on planning stuff, it would be a lot to also have the same people like doing that work. So if it doesn't mean it, maybe we're dividing this team into subgroups or whatever it might be, but I think defining like who's working on the documentation is going to be important. There's a lot of it.
Yeah.
I think the writing and the putting it on the webpage, 2 different parts.
I think having, and this might be a documentation sort of thing, a sort of site inventory, like a map of the resources and stuff that's out there.
Yeah. Someone to create map of existing resources. So we actually have a list that CPE built of stuff they didn't want to do, and then they handed that to OSPO. So we actually do have some lists. So I put that in there. There exists an inventory that's actually pretty comprehensive of at least of apps. So
do we have a sitemap on Fedora?
It is kind of chaotic. I think some of the websites are actually documented as apps on that list, though. Like what can I do for Fedora is documented as an app. We do not have a sitemap in like an XML sitemap thing that lays out everything. A lot because we have got a lot of things that are for various reasons on totally different domains.
Would that be useful to have?
Yes, I think so.
A sitemap?
We could put that here, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, if
Yeah,
we
a
had to
sitemap
go
would be
through
a huge
something,
tool
that would
for
be
search
something to
engine.
start with.
As a side note on the mentorship thing, I think then an important role going forward as we kind of figure that out and map this out and kind of get a better idea of pragmatically how we're working through it is going to be mentorship on managing and working with that sort of data, because that kind of stuff can be so overwhelming.
Yeah. Five and six are kind of linked. Maybe they're actually the same thing, but I think they're meant to have different focus in the outcomes. So I think it's okay to keep them separate, but they almost come down to being the same activity at the end, right? The outcome of having tasks for every skill level for income, that's for people looking to get involved, and actually handling PRs and requests promptly is, making sure the team is functional for users. But at the end, it's all about triaging the repo and making sure that that's up to date and making sure work is being tracked. Yeah, define the website apprentice and membership role. That's and mentorship training. I think that's something we can probably do. We can actually send people to some classes on mentorship and things if that's useful. Mindshare team to help on boarding. And again, the resources part should not necessarily be finalized right now, but the end result here is if we have all of these resources and then we use them to do all of these activities, we will get these outputs in the end. Having those outputs in the end will make these outcomes come true, and having those outcomes true will make the vision be realized. Which I really like this whole thing because it ties things like that. A lot of times you have this high level vision and then no real roadmap for getting there. So this actually gives you a roadmap. We'll do these things, and we can be confident that when we go to the council and say we need $4,000 for mentorship training for everybody on this website's team, the council's like, whoa, $4,000 is a lot of money. That's crazy. And then you can say, but look, it ties into this thing here, and we are pretty confident that we're going to get the results. So that's why we need these resources. And then we can say yes. And likewise, when you go to the design team and say, hey, we need a team badge, you can say this team badge is important for this. We're not just asking for frivolous artwork to be created. We have a plan. All right. So I think this is all worked through here. Does anybody have any more comments, feedback? Do we feel good about this?
I guess my question is just what our next steps will be for the next meeting. Do we want to make this a follow-up, or like, do we want to keep the discussion going on this? Do we want to? I guess I'm just trying to picture what the next week or two might look like.
So I think one of the things you're going to need if we're going to really make this happen is have one or two folks who are willing to take a lead, like have a lead type of a position, right? And then those are the folks that are committing to come to a weekly meeting, and then other people should come along and kind of work on it. It's going to be a lot of very slow work, and I think the next area is really breaking down each of these into detailed lists of tasks. So I really think that's the next place based on my experience with the community outreach revamp. And there's going to be more things that come up, more ideas, more thoughts. I don't think we're quite done with the planning and formulating stage. I think this is the basis for that, and we should do maybe another session next week going into more of the smaller tasks and activities that we're going to need to do.
I think it's also this is important administrative work, but it's not necessarily the work of doing the fun things of programming a website. So you don't have to do both of these things. It may be that the person who's the lead for the administrative side of things is not actually the technical lead. This is like in a job, you've got a manager or an administrative assistant, and then you may have an architect and a team lead as well. There's plenty of room for leadership in different ways in a team like this. So if all of this, if you've been quiet because all of these like administrative things seems boring to you and you just wanted to make the websites better, that's cool. It's fine. Don't let this drag you down. There's still room for you to be doing things.
Those parts are part of this. It's just not written right in front, right? So those will come a little bit further down the road. So being part of a revamp, still you can be coding and working on websites, just not at this moment. So it's important you're here.
And I think possibly. Although Ben's program management team is theoretical right now, it's just Ben. Bringing them in for that next step of breaking things down, and with them right now just being Ben, is probably a good thing to do, because that will help get that team kicked off as well. Again, action be cotton. I have a shirt that says that too, which I'll wear to the next meeting.
Cool.
And thank you everybody for going through this with me. I hope it's helpful. And I'm double booked, so I'm going to go off to a Fedora workstation planning meeting now.
Bye, Matthew.
Quick question.
Thank you for facilitating.
Is it going to be same time next week? Is it going to be 1.5 hours, or should I change the timing? Is it going to work?
I think we can do one. I think one is more sustainable.
Yeah.
How about 8:30 to 9:30?
Yeah.
Can do.
Okay.
I think we did a good job getting this to a 1.5 hour estimate was perfect. I'm getting better at that. Yeah. All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye, Matthew.
Bye.
Bye, Matthew.
Yeah, I think an hour is enough.
Yeah, I just wanted to get that out before everyone dropped out.
Perfect.
And
Yeah, we made a great progress. So this is quite a